Moving right along, we got a quickie fireside chat before we give out some awards and then go to lunch for the day. This subject is email metrics that matter, tracking success and measuring ROI, return on investment in email campaigns. Our speakers are CEO and CMO of Neuro Copywriter Ivan Iniguez and Vice President of Marketing of Lead Team LLC, Jamie Westall. Are y'all mic'd up? Come on to the stage. Little round of applause for our next two speakers. Welcome. Welcome again. Make sure our microphones are good.
Ivan, should we start off with some introductions? Can people hear me?
I guess so. Yeah.
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 My name's Jamie. I work for Lead Team. I'm the VP of marketing there, but I also represent a company called Sweat 440, which is a fitness franchise based out of Miami, where I am head of marketing there. I like the idea of leading with our purpose. My purpose has always been to help small business owners, franchises, local businesses grow and scale their business and their ideas. Particularly, my focus has been in the health and wellness space and fitness. So, being able to impact people's lives and see people's individual results, people hit their PRs or hit a health goal that they had in mind, to get off blood pressure medication, to hit a certain weight, to feel good in their swimsuit, whatever those goals are. That just brings me a lot of joy in my work and life.
Great introduction. I'm Josipan. Pretty good. No, it's I'm a CEO, CMO for fractional CMO for 7 and 8 figure companies in all different industries, and I mean, yeah, I guess I would just lead with my purpose as well. So it's just I love the fact of helping people, helping businesses, and just through marketing, optimizing what they can do and the impact they can have in other people's lives by making sure their message is right, the way they're saying it is right, it hits right to the people and kind of allows them to keep that brand loyalty also kind of where they want to be so that everything kind of fits in place. And ultimately, as I said, it's all about the impact. So
Great. So, Ivan, as we are onboarding a new customer or client and getting to know them, how do you really kind of assess or start talking about their email campaigns and journeys?
yeah, so actually kind of you already give a hint there. It's all about the like some people think email is just about just write something and put it out there on a ESP and that's it. Or think is others think it's just a matter of I will design this beautiful email and that's it, right? That's how it converts. But kind of seeing it from the big picture is always kind of the obvious answer to some extent is the customer journey. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What they have seen before, where they're coming from, and what they're looking to get. That kind of should be the premise and should be the starting point before even touching something related to email, before writing a word. It should always be that primary point, I guess.
Yeah, and that really goes for all channels, right? But since we're here talking about email, what is that customer journey? You must root yourself in the customer journey. What have they seen before joining your email list, or what have they seen from you before you put them into a new campaign for a product launch or a new location? So it's really important to keep all of that in mind and also make sure, so much we're talking about email ROIs, but many of our email campaigns also include SMS or phone call reminders for the sales team or customer service. So you really have to take the entire journey into consideration. And then once you know the goal of that individual campaign, then you can start designing and messaging around that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I would like to kind of know your thoughts on this. Like, how do you kind of strategize, for instance, how many emails should be in this particular campaign, and kind of your approach in something like, I don't know, these beautiful design emails versus something more direct or something like that? How do you do it?
Yeah, so it really depends on what the goal of the campaign is. A lot of what I do in the fitness and service industry, we're running promotions or we're launching a new service. And we are doing so over a relatively quick period of time. Like we're not doing this over a quarter, maybe it's a 2-week promotion or a 1-month launch to really kind of get this new product out there with the current clientele at least. So for us, the email and SMS journey is all very timed based off of, well, how much are we trying to push and how quickly, right? I don't like to blow people's inboxes up. That's not my brand's MO. There's already a lot of noise in there. You, you know, in my industry, the more emails you send, the higher the opt out rate. So really kind of understanding your industry and understanding what is normal and kind of testing like the the customer's willingness to get a lot of emails from you. It also, I have found recently that it depends on your email marketing system and your MarTech software. I'm currently, for better or worse, working with a software at the moment that the emails don't go out quite as timely as you would want them to. It makes me really wonder. But so for me, I can't run it's the last day of the sale, buy now, and send it at 6:30 in the morning, and then say final hours at 5:30, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. at night, and say buy now before it expires at midnight, because my CRM won't allow for that. So, you kind of have to know the limits of your CRM and what it's capable of doing.
Yeah, and kind of that's great because, for instance, again, depending of course the brand, the industry, and kind of you said something right that the way I define it's email tolerant, like how tolerant is people in your niche or in your audience kind of to receiving email. Like maybe it's just once a week, some type of like newsletter, maybe it's 3 times per week, maybe it's once every day. So it all depends. But surely it kind of really matters also kind of going back to that CRM. Like there are some basic free stuff that's great, but sometimes just because you want some segmentation, you don't have to kind of feel that need to stick to that particular CRM. Maybe it's time to upgrade to something that just allows you to do that segmentation better, and that kind of you don't think of it as just a cost. Of course, you should be always thinking in terms of the investment. Always look back at your economics, of course, but that's the essence of it, and you should always kind of have those numbers nailed down, making sure everything fits in place, and just having that CRM that fits to that strategy.
Yep, absolutely. And I know some of us are saddled with CRMs that, for a lot of reasons, may not be feasible for us to replace, right? So when we are stuck with a CRM, or at least for the near term, right? Because if you want to go with something more robust, if you want to change, that takes time, it takes implementation. If you're running on a really lean team, chances are you don't have the resources to drop everything and launch a new email CRM, right? I've been on Salesforce integrations, I've been on HubSpot integrations. These things take months. And also a lot of dollars with implementation teams and specialists to get it launched. So obviously there's systems out there like MailChimp that are very easy to stand up, but obviously offer a lot less. But maybe that's all you need. But when I think it's like a nice segue into every CRM is different, every email system is different, and none of them are perfect. I've worked in probably a dozen now, and none of them are perfect. None of them offer quite the segmentation I want, or quite the customer journey I would like them to take, or quite the reporting I would like to see. So I have to pull more manual reports if I need to dig into, well, why did that campaign not work? So Ivan, for you, when you're looking at those email metrics, how are you assessing holistically? First, holistically, how are you assessing any CRM and any email journey? Not necessarily the efficacy of your CRM, but just more of how do you assess holistically, and then we can get into the details.
Yeah, sure. So first, what I do is kind of getting back to the beginning, right? Like always trying to understand trying to do in that particular email campaign, segmentation, or whatever we're working on. And I will start there because, let's say you're running a particular promotion for something. You definitely need a basic segmentation that allows you to do customers from leads. But if your CRM doesn't have that, I mean, you will be annoying some people who already bought that thing that you're promoting. So it's again having those basic things nailed down that allows you to kind of have that clear perspective on what is that you need before even touching again a thing on the actual emails, on the actual strategy, doing something like vertical or horizontal segmentation, and just making sure things are right. So again, just getting back from the top all the way down to making sure that maybe in one particular, like, split testing is usually kind of the default response, but it's kind of the default response when you're doing things right. It's not just a matter of making sure you change just the subject line. Sometimes it's the subject line and it could change the entire body copy or the entire email strategy as what, like, holistically. So again, just making sure it depends a lot of the industry, it depends a lot of the niche, again also the market, and seasonalities as well also really matter. But just having that constant testing kind of practice that allows you to understand your customers and making sure that overall you know that your CRM allows you to kind of do what you're planning to do without, like, technology should never be kind of something that holds you back from email or from anything related to marketing. You should always kind of have that flexibility and just do it with marketing versus just trying to adapt the marketing strategy to the technology. So that's what I do.
When I'm coming into, like, to piggyback off that, when I'm coming into a company, I take a look at what CRM are they using, and immediately what are the high level metrics that I can get out of it. What emails are they currently sending and to whom, right? At what frequency? We talked yesterday in one of the sessions about your customers need to know when to expect that communication from you. Are you Walmart sending multiple emails a day? Or are you a monthly newsletter and they should expect it the first week of the month? People want predictability. They want that stability out of you. So I come in and immediately assess, what are you sending? When are you sending it? Who are you sending it to? And then I kind of start diving into the basic metrics, right? I'll research the industry. What are the industry standard kind of open rates? There's obviously a lot of variety out there. HubSpot puts out a report, Keep puts out a report, Salesforce puts out a report. There's all the reports out there, right? For your industry. Open rates and click through are kind of the two big metrics. But the metric I think that gets overlooked a lot is the click to open rate. And I've always struggled finding industry numbers for that because nobody seems to keep track of that. Very few CRMs offer up that stat out of the box. You have to calculate it yourself, right? What does your open rate tell you? Your open rate tells you how good your subject line was, how people just generally receive your brand in their inbox, and also possibly where in their inbox is it hitting? Is it hitting in their actual inbox? Is it hitting in promotions? Is it hitting in social, going to spam? So your open rate can tell you a lot of high level things about an email and your brand. But the click to open rate tells you, how is the content in your email? Is your content driving people to take the action you want them to take? Especially if the email is a sales email, or driving people to click to your website to watch a video or YouTube or to buy something. Are they taking the action you want them to take? So for me, click through rate, that's great. It helps me assess at a high level what's going on. But like I want to know that click to open rate, because for me, that tells me, like, do we have a content issue problem? Do we have I've seen so many clients time and time again bury the call to action at the bottom of the email. And I'm like, and you just made me scroll like 3 or 4 times to get to the bottom. Is anyone doing that? No, that's why your click to open rate's low. Let's move the button up or put the button in multiple different places so that people, if they're ready to buy off the bat, they have the button. If they need more information, they have the button after they've gotten the information that they need in order to learn more.
Yep, and I feel that at the end, what really matters is kind of how much revenue are you getting from it, right? Like, we all know email is kind of the highest has the highest ROI from all the other different platforms and all of that. That's cool, like in theory, but how do you put it in practice? Well, of course, that's where you start tracking how much money, how much revenue are coming from each campaign, from each email, and all of those metrics, as you said, right? The click-through open rate, click-through rate, unsubscribe rate also is very important, of course, but making sure you always have a pulse on kind of how much revenue is that email or that strategy bringing in, because it doesn't matter, some cases I've seen many times where opens were lower from what they were expecting or industry standard, click-through rates were lower also from industry standard, but profits were the same or sometimes even more. So it's not like a glitch, it's not like I did magic. It was just a matter of making sure I kept track of what really matters, which is profit in those particular cases, and making sure that, I don't take decisions based just on that particular emotion, but I just realized, okay, well, still doing great because profit's there and it's increasing. So also that's another thing.
Now, Ivan, what is your thought about content? Educational versus sales forward. There's some who subscribe to the 80/20 rule of educational versus direct call to action sales messaging. What is your thought on that in email?
So as always, depends a lot of the niche, the audience, and all of that. That's kind of the basic thing that it's hard for me to kind of give a hard rule. So I would like to kind of give from a principles perspective, so anyone can try to apply something to it. But the way I see it, for instance, e-commerce brands, everyone when they think of emails from e-com brands, they usually think beautiful HTML type of email, just with a lot of promotions, and that's it, right? So it kind of 99.9% pitch, and maybe just one email every couple of months or couple of weeks, just talking about different promos or trying to relate it with some, Valentine's Day or whatever, right? But something, for instance, that many of different businesses neglect is that very first interaction that they have. So depending where they're coming from, I'm gonna assume they have, you have a sign-up form or a lead magnet or something of that kind. That very first interaction really matters. So what are you doing in that welcome series that kind of is that very first date or after that very first date, like that you are nurturing people into building that relationship with your audience? Because if you want to kind of maximize ROI, you have to use email as a way to just not only get in contact with them, but actually kind of again build that connection, build that relationship with your audience to the point that they get to know you, they get to know your voice, what you stand for, who is behind that brand. Sometimes that's also kind of very important, again, depending on where you're at or what you're doing. But it's also making sure that, once you have that clear, you can just start testing. For instance, for ecom brands, something that I've done is the very first email, like the welcome email number one, right after they sign up for something. What I do is just kind of first, kind of between mostly HTML, I'd say, thank you so much for signing up, blah, blah, blah. This is how frequently you will hear from us because of XYZ, and here's what you will get in those emails. Because again, ecom brands, we immediately associate with that idea of just beautiful promos. So I'm trying to kind of start deviating from that. And then, for instance, I don't know, a day later, I send more of a plain text type of email from the founder of the CEO or something like that, like kind of giving that feeling that there's someone behind and saying, hey, thanks so much. I started my brand because of this. I stand for this, like talking about purpose, right? So all of that, and then just kind of leading the other emails, like depending on the strategy and all of that. But kind of that's how I'm doing it. Sometimes I'm testing a blend. Sometimes I'm just testing more in terms of just plain text, and sometimes I'm just doing a kind of mostly a hybrid at this point because I want to make sure that the moment I make things very predictable, people also will kind of get bored and they would just start ignoring, just getting more, adding more to the noise, which is the last thing that we want. How about you? What do you do?
I agree with a lot of that. I like the blend of personal emails that look like it could be from the salesperson or the founder's inbox, and very well you might actually put the salesperson email in there, right? And create an automation for the sales team. Um, in being in fitness and wellness, there's lots of opportunities for us to educate. And in these educational emails, and I've also worked with B2B brands as well. Part of franchising is also going out and getting franchisors. So there's also that kind of B2B aspect. And it's really tailoring that education to the why, going back to that purpose that we just talked about, right? why, what is the purpose of the company? What is the pain point you're trying to solve for your consumer? And and why you are the solution. Um, and through that education, it could be through blogs, it could be through videos, um, all within the email. But at the end of the day, you can still have a CTA at the bottom if you want, if it makes sense, right? Sometimes the CTA is right at the top. Get our founders membership. Great, that's super straightforward. I know I'm getting the best deal possible before you open. Sometimes it's, this is who Sweat 440 is, or insert your brand. Here's a video from our founder telling you why they created Sweat 440 and what they hope that it's going to bring to your community. And then, want to learn more? Click the link below to learn more about our founders rates and how you can start your fitness journey today. So you can always do kind of a nice blend. It doesn't have to be straight educational with no CTA, and then you're like, I had no click through. Well, that's because you didn't have anyone. The purpose was not for them to click. The purpose was just for them to read and maybe respond, right? Um, so yeah, just kind of understanding your campaign and what metrics you might want to look at based off of the objective of it.
Yep, and that's something I kind of want to piggyback on that because you mentioned that sometimes the call to action could be as simple as getting a reply, right? Sometimes, for instance, that's something that we can also talk about if people are interested in that very hot topic of email deliverability. So, for instance, something that people can do is from the technical side of things, people want these ISPs want to make sure or want to know that you're kind of having a two-way conversation as email should be. So something you can do, and it could also easily be done on an automation type of level as well. It could be just, hey, like the very first email, you could say, hey, like for now, I would like to reply, what about X, got your attention or something like that. You start getting replies, and it's up to you whether you hire someone to actually reply so that they know they can have that back and forth. But in terms of the technical side of things, that it starts helping with your email deliverability from the first email, because again, like they are seeing that there's a two-way conversation versus just one way, and let alone like a lot of beautiful emails or just a lot of pitch right there. So I think that's something, again, like it all comes back to just testing, but not just testing subject lines, not just testing emojis, not just testing the call to action or the color of the call to action. It's just a matter of making sure you test from a holistic level the strategy and also kind of the planning and the content of the email. So sometimes could be just short email, like 3-5 sentences at the call to action, could be just a button, could be just a hyperlink, could be just no call to action, could be just a reply. So all of that, again, just a matter of making sure you have that constant habit of testing, but not testing, like don't limit yourself to what you can test, and your horizons in terms of everything should be always long term, and making sure to track the right things as well to make sure you're not getting the wrong data as well.
And going back to what was said earlier, yesterday, making sure you know what you're testing, right? Are you testing subject lines? Are you testing the content of the email and how it's laid out? Are you testing plain text versus beautiful design? Something more personalized versus something more very e-commerce driven that people expect out of their inbox, right? Know what you're testing and make sure you're not muddying the waters with your test by testing multiple things at once. So that's like one of the worst things you can do. You're like, I tested all these things and it worked. Great, but why? What was the differentiating factor? Now you have to kind of do more tests, parse out. Was it test A? Was it test B? Was it test C? You don't know until you then parse out the tests which one actually had that big incremental lift that you saw in that successful campaign. Or, why didn't it work? Well, now you have to go back and parse it out on each of those three things that you threw at that one campaign to test. So just make sure you're not muddying the waters with too much testing in one campaign or on any one email, so that you get nice, clean results.
Yeah, I guess always, as we said, right? Like always getting back to those metrics that really matter, and just making sure we have a clear sense of what we're trying to do, but also kind of looking from a very kind of 6-month type of perspective where we want to make sure we track the right things versus just particular welcome series. I don't know. We are just testing something out, and looks like it's performing great, but maybe month 2 or 3 is kind of getting back to normal. Maybe just it actually end up performing worse than one we had before. So again, like always making sure you have the long-term vision of assessing things and making sure you are actually kind of doing something from that perspective helps.
Yeah. One of the new metrics I've been looking at, thanks to, I was kind of complaining about my current CRM, but one of the things that it does well is that, like many CRMs, you can set goals, right? Exit goals. If they purchase, take them out of this campaign. If they, say they're not interested, via a button, not an unsubscribe, of course, they exit the campaign. They replied to the email, they exit the campaign. Whatever your exit goals are, my current system actually will tell me what is the exit rate based off of my goals. That exit rate does not include unsubscribes. It does not include people who got maybe tagged with a not interested by our customer service team. So being able to, set goals in your CRM or in your campaign that you're building, and then taking a look at how many people are actually reaching that goal and trying, every CRM is different, right? You might be able to set multiple goals and measure each individual goal, right? Or some you might have to kind of lump together and hope that you know, your unsubscribes are not included in there. But really take a look at your exit goal, because sometimes for a campaign, if you're not an e-commerce brand, revenue might not be directly attributed to email. So, for example, in the fitness industry, a lot of it is top of funnel marketing. I'm responsible for getting people into their first class. They exit my journey when they schedule their first class. It's now up to the studio team to get them actually in, confirmed for class, and having a wonderful experience and get them to buy membership. So I'm looking at the exit goal of, did they schedule their first class? That's my metric that I'm looking at in one of my campaigns. It's for you to assess based off of your campaign, based off of your industry, what you're putting out to the world, what your goals are. And so exit goals can be a really great way to measure success of a campaign at a very high level.
Yep, and to be honest, that for instance, if we were to say what's the number one type of reason someone decides to open an email, to be honest, it all comes back to who is sending it. So it's not the subject line. It's definitely not the pre-head. It's not kind of whether you have an emoji or not, which is still part of the subject line. It's once you have that clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish, it all comes back to the from email, right? Like you don't want to play, to the point where you're not getting compliant, but you want to make sure that you build enough trust from the very first interaction. Again, getting back to that, to the point that when people have their inbox with another 50 emails, they start looking for who is sending it, and they see your name or your brand or something, and then because of it they are willing to open it versus just kind of ignore it or never open up or end up actually in spam. So again, once you have that clear vision of your relationship, what you're trying to accomplish, and making sure that things are kind of where you want to be from a strategy standpoint, but also kind of from what each email should perform, should have, then it's just a matter of making sure, okay, great. Now, because of my subject line, because of everything rest, it's doing good, but it's also a matter of making sure that the front end, like, again, getting back to that relationship, is there. So from the very first interaction, people are willing to open so that when you keep sending emails, they get to the point that they want to open them. And if you actually stop, people will be reaching out to you saying, hey, like, is everything good? Like, I haven't heard back from you in three weeks, 5 days, whatever it is. So what's going on, right? They start reaching out because you had that strong relationship, and you build it from the very first interaction.
Very well said. Um, Ivan, do you want to talk about deliverability? I feel like with Google right now, they've just rolled out some new algorithms, if you will, that they know that you're sending from a CRM, and therefore redirecting. Like, what what are you doing or seeing on the deliverability side at the moment?
Yeah, so I think I will leave you with that part of the answer from your experience with that. I would like to kind of just lead with the copywriting side of things, which kind of where I come from, like my background. I still do something here and there, but it's a matter of, as I said, right? It all comes back to sending having a clear frequency of your emails, having a clear idea of how frequent you're gonna be sending those emails, but also sticking to it. It doesn't matter, you're gonna you said from the very beginning you will be sending 3 emails per week, but you do that for about a month, and then you end up actually kind of saying once or twice because you lack ideas or because you don't want to kind of bother people too much. It's just a matter of kind of staying consistent to that idea, regardless of the industry, regardless of the niche. There's always some frequency you can follow, but at the end, it's just making sure again you have that deliverability long enough to the point that people again they are willing and they are accepting and they are expecting to receive your emails to the point that they are again they're going to be expecting to see it, they're going to be opening it, they're going to be reading it, they're going to be taking the action that you're planning on that particular email. And at the very end, also as I said, you can play with the call to actions. Sometimes you can actually ask for a reply, sometimes you can just ask for a very kind of beautiful HTML, regardless again of the industry. Sometimes you can do more of a plain text and just kind of keep playing around with each and every single one, making sure what's best, always trying to improve. But from that idea of keeping that consistency and everything kind of from a whole point of view is going to help.
Yeah. Um, Speaking to like the algorithm and whatnot, especially with Google Mail services, definitely work with your CRM. They should have a solution for you. And for example, my CRM, when I reached out to them and I was like, "Hey, it's my understanding Google is changing the algorithm." I looked at how my emails are hitting my inbox, and I checked my work email and I checked my personal email, and both of them say that they're coming from the CRM. They're not coming from sweat440.com. And they were like, "Oh, well, we need you to do X, Y, and Z." And it was all like I sent it over to my web team because it all had to be done on the DNS, which is not my technicality, so cannot take any questions there. But my web team took care of it, and sure enough, within a couple of days, that was resolved. So definitely check out, see how you're in, test your emails to your personal email or test your emails to, a segment of people across your company, and then ask them, you know, where's Google actually showing that this is being sent from? And then working with your CRM rep or their customer service of how do we fix this? Because most of them should have a solution by now.
Yep, and that kind of leads to that idea of having a good list hygiene. So, it's not just taking a shower every day, it's also kind of for your list. So, yeah, it's, constantly making sure those who are unsubscribed, those who are not longer, like they haven't opened your emails from 30, 60, 90 days, even up to 180 days, you kind of create some reactivation type of a sequence that kind of gets them back to some extent. Because if they're still a feed, but they, life got in their way, all good. But if they're no longer a feed or they are no longer interested, in that idea or that preference change, because it's everything again depends of seasonalities also, you can just get rid of them and making sure you keep your deliverability high and your reputation high, while making sure again everything kind of fits together in that idea of just again getting back to that idea of if you have that good frequency, if you have things that are interesting and you're saying something interesting in the emails, you won't be having much of those issues. It's just still good practices to have. But once you have a pulse on, I know my content is good, I know I'm getting better ROI, and I know what type of content my audience likes, I can start playing with a little more advanced things. For instance, actually doing segmentation in the email. So the actual call to action could be something like, I don't know, someone selling supplements for pets, right? Like, hey, something like a plain text could be, hey, this looks hey, we would like to kind of know what do you have, a cat or a dog, right? Each one hyperlinked to a particular landing page, but already when they click, you already tag them on your CRM saying, dog owner, cat owner, whatever, and you start later on using that data as a powerful segmentation tool to keep nurturing, keep getting better at the relationship, so that when you're running a promo for a cat and someone has a dog, not that relevant, versus someone who kind of has a cat and you know that they have a cat and you're running a promo for a cat, then it's better for that.
Oh, should we open it up for questions?
I guess so.
Yeah. Any questions?
Okay.
CTOR and CTOs. That was great. I'd like to elevate the conversation to AI and data, how that has affected your CRMs and what type of tools that you have experienced. Because there are things out there now in terms of testing where you can take your segmented database and let's say I'm going to focus on the dog owners with high net worth, double income, no kids, and against the family, segment. You can actually put AI to make this database respond and test it so you don't fatigue your database. And you test it against the AI model against those profiles and segments to see how it's going to perform before you actually send it out to your database. What other tools in AI, in terms of not content creation, but really segmentation and testing and metrics, are you familiar with using, or that's new that we should be looking out for?
Ivan, I'll let you take that. My current CRM, this is one of the problems that we have. It's not open API on the back end, so I can't connect a whole lot with it. But as I said, we don't always have the ability to just change your CRM on a whim. While that is the ideal situation, unfortunately for my company at the moment, that is not. I think to your point, and what I'll before I hand it off to you, is that we need to be careful whenever we're using our lists of uploading it to AI. Going back to the privacy and ethics of yesterday, like be very careful what you're doing with your customer list, and is it within your terms and conditions that you have laid out when they opted in, right? Or to your local or international laws that you have to abide by. Yeah.
I want to know what tools are out there that can actually kind of replicate your AI database so that you can actually test and measure. Governance, I mean, obviously you're going to follow through, do the right thing.
Yep.
But what tools are out there? What are the new things? Who are the new players?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. As far as I know, I don't know any specific names, but I definitely know there are some tools out there that are start playing with that. Like in terms of the email content, for instance, this is where kind of where a lot of AI tools are out there. They're still playing, just put something like your audience demographics, psychographics, and they will create an entire email campaign for you. So kind of allows you to speed things up. But as we know, kind of AI, it's a tool. Like it allows you to kind of do things better and faster, but it's kind of you cannot take what AI is doing for it. And sometimes, in terms of actually analyzing data, kind of my point of view on that would be it's great that you can take data with AI and analyze it, but you have to kind of be careful on kind of getting to the point where you get that data overwhelmed. Meaning, like, doesn't matter how much data you're getting, kind of to the detail, if you cannot actually implement it or do something with it, or if you don't have the basis with that. Because again, like, doesn't matter if you don't have basic segmentation. It doesn't really matter if you can have predictable analytics that in 3 months, maybe you should change your welcome series to a new seasonality because people have been reading your exact same welcome series for the last 6 months. It's great. Definitely, you can do that and speed things up as well. But it doesn't matter if people don't really have those again core foundations. If your CRM doesn't allow you to do those things also, and making sure again like it's always getting back to the audience. Like kind of people will have that WII from radio, like what's in it for me. They will always be trying to kind of find what's in it for them, right? Whether they care, why they should care about opening your emails, reading your stuff, and all of that. Once you have that nailed down, you could have the very worst type of data, just in very basic metrics, but still you will be doing great if you have those capabilities of understanding your audience. So that is great, but it's always getting back to understanding your audience.
Panel, we have time for a few questions.
Great.
Okay.
Andy and the Great.
Yeah. How are you testing subject lines or prompt lines with Apple's mail privacy function?
Great question. Right now, we are just testing and kind of seeing what happens with the test because it's a little, to us, it's still a little unclear of what exactly is happening in people's inbox. Like so many times, Apple, Google, they'll change policies and they tell you very vaguely, we're changing policies. And then they kind of leave you to figure out, like, what does that actually mean? Or how does this actually change how things are showing up? So right now, my company is currently going about our normal A/B testing of what we would do, personalized subject lines versus non-personalized, emojis versus non-emojis, a short and sweet like 50% off versus something more catchy and punny maybe. And same with the from. right? We'll keep playing with the from as well of, is it company name and location, or is it studio manager name, or whomever. So we're still playing and figuring it out on our own. So far, it appears that we're still getting actual results from our split test. It's hasn't looked much difference from our previous data. So
Yeah. So for the subject line, it's always kind of we'll start getting more into kind of actual copywriting, like kind of playing in the way we're saying things, right? Like the same going from basic pain to pleasure, going to kind of more leading to more curiosity or more type of actually offer type of driven subject lines. And again, just kind of start getting into that idea. So sure, I mean we're not a ruler in those games, right? It's always Gmail, Yahoo, or type of stuff. But what really matters is again just making sure I'm kind of uh, broken record at this point, but it's just making sure that you once you understand your audience, they will be expecting to kind of have that touch point from you. Like they will be expecting to hear back from you X days or X times per week. So once you have that relationship, people will be still opening up. People will be actually kind of doing the effort of finding your emails, whether they land on the spam for whatever reason, or actually on the kind of promotional stuff on Gmail, like they will be doing that extra effort because you build enough relationship, you build enough trust with that particular customer that they know they are expecting to hear back from you and they will know. Now, in terms of the from something I would add, it's you can like that's also part of the strategy. You can actually start playing a little bit. Sometimes you can just sent from the a particular representative or something like that. Maybe again, email two could be the from name from the CEO or the founder or someone close. Then next week could be kind of like a takeover from I don't know someone in the tech team or depending different department. Like you can start playing around in terms of more that's more for the broadcast type of things. But what really matters again, just making sure you're not just playing for the sake of playing. It's a matter of making sure you kind of keep things going always building the relationship.
and like speaking to the actual question of how are these privacy laws or privacy policies changing the results, at the end of the day, it's you might need to find a new baseline for some of these things, but the data baseline, once you have established that data baseline, that becomes your new baseline. And then that's how you kind of assess your tests from there, knowing that, some people have opted out and you're not going to be able to see that data point. So, if your numbers start skewing one way or another, just kind of take a note of that over a couple of months, find a new baseline, and then measure success off of that new baseline rather than what you were measuring success off of 3 months ago, 6 months ago, or a year.
That's our time, panel. Big round of applause for our two guest speakers.